financial analytics domain, leading the data science teams at Cabot, which is a fintech company. He recently moved to Amazon. Before that, he had a very successful career at Citibank, and almost 17 to 18 plus years. Before that, he did his MTech degree and a BTech degree from MTech is from US, and ISP Hyderabad MBA. So he has been a voracious learner and reader and a contributor, and RP was part of our data science programs, analytics and ML programs, which we run at Reva Academy for Corporate Excellence at Reva University from almost the inception. So he has been part of this design and delivery of these programs, and we are so excited to welcome back Ratnakar again to address this specific gathering, which has, I think most of you, I'm just assuming that most of you joined to see what are the applications of computer vision, but also we would like to feel that you are also interested to know about our MTech AI program, how is it designed and how it is different from the market. So over to RP, and if everything is fine.
And thanks again, Shinu, for the introduction and setting the stage for me. Really appreciate it. So what we'll be doing, folks, is because of the short nature of the webinar today, we will not go in great depth, but we would like to sort of at least give you a view of what are the possibilities within the realm of computer vision, and how the things that we take for granted in our day-to-day life can be made a lot better using some of the ML and deep learning algorithms, right? And by no sort of like stretch of imagination, you should expect that this session is going to make you comfortable in the coding and all of that. Even though, if time permits, I will like to show you how simple it is to code in Python for doing some complex stuff as well, because most of the complexity is already baked in terms of the packages that we use in Python, right? But nevertheless, feel free to stop me. And because I won't have the chat window open, just to really give you that view where you don't have that window popping up and creating that nuisance, we will take a pause in between. So for example, this is 8:07 right now. So we'll go on for some time, and then we can take maybe a pause at 15 minutes time and then see if there is a question. Do make sure that you type your question, and Pawan, if you can help me bubble up some of those questions from the chat window, that will be super helpful, right?
Yes. If any questions comes, I'll let you know.
Awesome, cool. And feel free to unmute yourself also. So I think that is great if you can make it more conversational and so on and so forth, right? So as Shinu mentioned about my experience, so around 18 years of experience in terms of the analytics and data science. I've been in the field even before it was called data science, and so much glorified and stuff like that, right? So I started working and then later on realized that this field is called analytics and data science way back in 2000 when I started first working in terms of my programming skills in SAS and so on and so forth from right after my graduation from University of Arkansas and before I went for Texas Instruments, right? So we'll talk about the computer vision. And what I'm going to do now is use this annotation tool so that you know where exactly I am and so on and so forth, right? So computer vision is the field which is basically used for a lot of different areas, and we'll be looking at some of those examples, but I'll give you guys a minute to take a look into this slide, and then we will move on with the regular flow. This is a definition which is widely accepted coming in from Wikipedia. Okay, so what jumps out from over here is you want the computer to have a high level understanding of digital images and videos, right? So the art and science of where you can train computers. When I say computers, you can replace that with a more generic term, machines, right? So you can train the machines to look into the digital images and videos and draw the same conclusions and inferences as a human being, right? Now, it is very easy to say, and it's very, very difficult thing to accomplish. You'll see it shortly why. But that's what basically the computer vision is all about, right? Why do we need it? one of the main things is to automate, right? Not just automate, but to really have a scalability, right? So when you want to do things at scale, I mean, I can have 50 analysts sit and look into the images all day long, but that is not going to be a scalable solution as my business needs grow and as I need to get more efficiency in the system. The second thing is also to ensure the high standard of quality, right? Because if I have a human doing certain tasks, the fatigue creeps in, right? There are human errors, unavoidable human errors, random errors that may come in as well, right? But once a machine figures out a way to really detect that, it can do the same task with a certain level of accuracy over a period of time. It doesn't mean that when machine is going to do something, it's not going to make an error. It will definitely have, certain level of accuracy or certain level of error, but those are some of the things that we accept before we deploy any machine learning solution, right? So that's the overall broad field of computer vision, right? I don't know why this thing is popping up there, Pawan. It says Akshay. Is it like some chat or something? Okay, not sure.
I think you opened something.
Yeah, okay, let me close it, right? So
Yes.
what are the different applications over here? Let's see how many of the applications you can name. What do you think are there? And these are all the applications which computer vision really facilitate. So let's see if you can quickly talk about that. And these are just a small sample of the possibilities. The universe of activities that the CV can handle for you, CV's computer vision, is evolving and is pretty much all around us, right? So are there any chats coming along, or you guys want to unmute yourself? Either way you can do that. Okay, so far no chats, but talking about the possibilities, yeah, go ahead. Somebody's saying something. Okay, so crowd detection, Amita says, yeah, that's correct. Right, so this data, for example, will be more in terms of your traffic management, right? So, I mean, you have those signals, the red light signals and all of that, and they will turn, red, green, orange, and a lot of places they are actually doing that. So, Shmita says driverless car, that's correct. So, you can see the self-driving car or the driverless car again being driven by the AI, okay? So a lot of comments coming in. Let's see. Anyone recognizes what is this? This is the Mars rover, right? So we have the Mars rover over here, right? Obviously we have a face recognition. We have the medical imaging, right? I'm sure you guys are aware of the scene as well. So there are a lot of movies where animation is, yeah, Avatar is a great example where the entire movie is actually based on the animation, right? And all of those are being created using some sort of computer vision, right? And other ways of sort of like, creating those animation, but that it forms an integral part in terms of some of those things which happen, right? And last but not least, we have OCR. OCR is nothing but the optical character recognition. Can we get best accuracy for handwritten OCR? Of course, right. So there is a well-known data set. We will, if time permits, we'll talk about that MNIST data set where, I mean, you can recognize the hand digits, right? So OCR, I mean, for example, people upload their licenses, their PAN card, other form of the government IDs, and then I can again have set of analysts go and look into those ID proofs and then see whether that is correct or not. Versus I can have the characters from those government IDs pulled out and then I can verify from the government databases, right? So whether the PAN ID that, let's say RP is applying for a certain role and a certain loan or role for that matter, in fact, and they want to confirm whether there is anything outstanding against my name. They want to confirm with the bureau and all of that. And I just upload my PAN picture. From there, they're able to pull the PAN number and so on and so forth. And it creates basically a unique customer experience as well. I mean, I can obviously give my customer a 100-line form to fill out. I'm not sure how many of us will enjoy filling out a 100-line form versus we say, okay, you don't have to do anything. You just upload certain papers for me, scan and upload, and we will fill out everything for you, right? So you can see there's a lot of efficiency, a lot of customer delight, a lot of customer pain point that we are solving, and obviously, some of the real world problems you're trying to solve as well. As we speak, the picture on the top right area, the medical imaging, I mean, we have a shortage of medical professionals for pretty much all the fields you can imagine, right? So there is more need for the medical care than the number of physicians we have available. So how do we really make it available at the grassroots level, right? And so on and so forth. And you can see if I can have a center where people can actually send their images and all of that, we can do remote detection, we can take it forward, right? So what is it that is driving the computer vision and why all of a sudden, there's more buzz, there's much more excitement around these areas and so on and so forth. So first, let's focus on this area. These are some of the driving factors, right? The first factor is the need for automation, as we discussed earlier, right? And right now, I mean, the newspapers are obviously flooded with the COVID-19 news. But in a normal time, you would see that there'll be a lot of articles or publications for how can we automate things using computer vision or AI and so on and so forth, right? So even in today's times, for example, there was an article that AI can do a great job in automating some of the things for the COVID-19 fight, right? So pretty much, every day you will see, oh, you see the same slide, Amita says, the slide has not changed for you guys. Is that right? I am on the slide which says factors driving CV and business impact. Has not refreshed. Oh, guys, can I get a quick confirmation from everyone?
Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so thanks for pointing it out. That's awesome. So everybody's paying close attention, right? So the need for automation is one of the things, right? The second thing is the digital images and the digital videos are very, very storage intensive. They'll need a lot of storage for them to be processed in a digital fashion, right? So I mean, you're talking about terabytes and petabytes of data just for storing those images and the videos and so on and so forth, right? Earlier, it was not possible, right? Earlier, because of the cost of the memory and so on and so forth, it wasn't necessarily something which was practical, right? I mean, you could hire 1,000 people in that cost. But now the cost of the storage has dropped significantly. It's super cheap, right? So the cheaper memory and the cheaper storage and the higher processing speed of the machines also has created this environment where it makes sense for us to think about the AI-driven solutions for the computer vision, right? AI, by the way, is a term which is not a new term. Does anyone know when was it first used? And I will give you some options: 1950s, 2000, 2010. Okay, so Swaroop is right. It was first used in 1956. So AI is not a new term at all, right? So it has been there for a very long time, but it was sort of like in a dormant state, not necessarily being used very frequently because of these limitations that we're talking about. And now those limitations have become the asset, right? The third thing is the explosion of the visual data, right? Everywhere you go, you have these sensors, the CCTV cameras, smartphones in everyone's hands, right? Other visual devices which are sort of like, having sort of like an explosion of all sort of static and dynamic visual data, right? So plenty of data, plenty of firepower in the computation, and the need to really make sense from this, right? We talked about the omnipresent camera as well. And last but not the least is the algorithm space as well. So there has been quite a revolution in terms of the new algorithms which have come on the scene, which can take the or which can do the task of the image classification or object recognition and so on and so forth much faster than what it used to be possible earlier on, right? So there are challenges like the ImageNet and all of that that you can Google later on, where a lot of these things are happening, right? These are some of the numbers, and this is something that I pulled from one of the articles from SAS. It basically talks about a variety of different area, right? So 90% defect reduction can be achieved in the manufacturing if somebody is deploying AI more, right? I don't know whether we are at 60% right now, 70% right now, but this is like, I mean, a possibility that can be done, right? Something related with the sports, how many players they can analyze, and sports is a big area where they're using AI right now, as we talk about that, right? They can catch, the fraud and the counterfeit, so on and so forth. I'm not going to go through all of them. Let's pick another interesting one, right? For example, the oil pipelines and stuff like that, they can be detected as well. Insurance fraud, right, and so on and so forth. So the bottom line is, you pick any industry, any vertical, and you will find a direct application of some of the concepts that we will talk about in the AI and particularly in the computer vision, right? But computer vision is not that easy, right? So, and you can see from my slide itself, right? So let me just go over here. So in this case, so let's say I've built an algorithm to detect a parrot, right? But the parrot can be in many different shape and form. So for example, if I can turn around the parrot, I don't know why it's not doing that, but let's say my parrot is like this, right? Or if my parrot is in any other angle, right? Similarly, if this object, for example, I can move him, right? So even this guy becomes a parrot which is upside down and so on and so forth, and that becomes a challenge, right? So you can see if I just change the view, the algorithm that I've written is not that simple for me to identify, right? So obviously it's not that easy, right? Otherwise, you will see tons of application everywhere. But what was difficult earlier on is now becoming possible with the help of the data, with the help of the algorithms, with the help of the fresh minds that we are getting in the data science field, with the amalgamation of the different backgrounds, people coming in from the humanities, from the social sciences, from other fields, from manufacturing into data science, right? So I mean, now you have a very diverse pool of people who can actually make sense of something and do it better, right? So at this point of time, guys, what I'm going to do is I'll play a short video, and it talks about is the current screen designed with DS? No, this is just a simple PowerPoint. But I will show you some demonstration, right? So in this video, pay attention to like a few things, and it talks about a couple of algorithms. I mean, by no way I am expecting you to remember these algorithms or even know what these algorithms are, but it does talk about a couple of main ones which are used for the computer vision, and one of them is called convolution neural network, which works great for the static images where you don't have any sequence of the frames, and the other one is called the recurrent neural network, again which is similar to sort of like CNN, but the output from the CNN is fed into a recurrent neural network, where recurrent neural network will have the timestamp data as well. So for example, I keep on giving this so sequence is very important. So somebody asked, I think this was, a great case study, and this is coming out from Indigo's customer service, which has a chatbot, automated chatbot, right? So somebody says, how was your flight? So it was bad, not good, right? So if I have this sentence versus if it was good, not bad. So it has exactly the same words, not good, not bad, it's right? But the sequence is different. So it's bad, not good, and it's good, not bad. So this is where basically the RNN really comes in and talks about that. But I'm not going to go and steal the thunder. So let me see if I can play the video, and if you guys can hear it. If not, then I will put the link there in the chat window for you, so you can watch it, and then let's come back and then we'll take it from there. Let me do this also, why to wait for it to play on my screen. So if it does, great. Otherwise, it should also be something that you can pull up on your screen.
Human vision is amazingly beautiful and complex. It all started billions of years
RP, we can hear.
small organisms
Yeah?
developed
Okay, so I'll go to the
that made
video
them
then, yeah?
sensitive to light.
Sorry.
Fast forward to today, and there's an abundance of life on the planet, which all have very similar visual systems. They include eyes for capturing light, receptors in the brain for accessing it, and a visual cortex for processing it. genetically engineered and balanced pieces of a system which help us do things as simple as appreciating a sunrise. But this is really just the beginning. In the past 30 years, we've made even more strides to extending this amazing visual ability, not just to ourselves, but to machines as well. The first type of photographic camera was invented around 1816, where a small box held a piece of paper coated with silver chloride. When the shutter was opened, the silver chloride would darken where it was exposed to light. Now, 200 years later, we have much more advanced versions of the system that can capture photos right into digital form. So we've been able to closely mimic how the human eye can capture light and color. But it's turning out that that was the easy part. Understanding what's in the photo is much more difficult. Consider this picture. My human brain can look at it and immediately know that it's a flower. Our brains are cheating since we've got a couple million years worth of evolutionary context to help immediately understand what this is. But a computer doesn't have that same advantage. To an algorithm, the image looks like this. Just a massive array of integer values, which represent intensities across the color spectrum. There's no context here, just a massive pile of data. It turns out that the context is the crux of getting algorithms to understand image content in the same way that the human brain does. And to make this work, we use an algorithm very similar to how the human brain operates, using machine learning. Machine learning allows us to effectively train the context for a data set so that an algorithm can understand what all those numbers in a specific organization actually represent. And what if we have images that are difficult for a human to classify? Can machine learning achieve better accuracy? For example, let's take a look at these images of sheepdogs and mops, where it's pretty hard even for us to differentiate between the two. With the machine learning model, we can take a bunch of images of sheepdogs and mops, and as long as we feed it enough data, it will eventually be able to properly tell the difference between the two. Computer vision is taking on increasingly complex challenges and is seeing accuracy that rivals humans performing the same image recognition task. But like humans, these models aren't perfect. They do sometimes make mistakes. The specific type of neural network that accomplishes this is called a convolutional neural network, or CNN. CNNs work by breaking an image down into smaller groups of pixels called a filter. Each filter is a matrix of pixels, and the network does a series of calculations on these pixels, comparing them against pixels in the specific patterns the network is looking for. In the first layer of the CNN, it is able to detect high-level patterns like rough edges and curves. As the network performs more convolutions, it can begin to identify specific objects like faces and animals. How does the CNN know what to look for, and if its prediction is accurate? This is done through a large amount of labeled training data. When the CNN starts, all of the filter values are randomized. As a result, its initial predictions make little sense. Each time the CNN makes a prediction against labeled data, it uses an error function to compare how close its prediction was to the image's actual label. Based on this error, or loss function, the CNN updates its filter values and starts the process again. Ideally, each iteration performs with slightly more accuracy. What if instead of analyzing a single image, we want to analyze a video using machine learning? At its core, a video is just a series of image frames. To analyze a video, we can build on our CNN for image analysis. In still images, we can use CNNs to identify features. But when we move to video, things get more difficult, since the items we're identifying might change over time. Or, more likely, there's context between the video frames that's highly important to labeling. For example, if there's a picture of a half-full cardboard box, we might want to label it packing a box or unpacking a box, depending on the frames before and after it. This is where CNNs come up lacking. They can only take into account spatial features, the visual data in an image, but can't handle temporal or time features, how a frame is related to the one before it. To address this issue, we have to take the output of our CNN and feed it into another model which can handle the temporal nature of our videos. This type of model is called a recurrent neural network, or RNN. While a CNN treats groups of pixels independently, an RNN can retain information about what it's already processed and use that in its decision-making. RNNs can handle many types of input and output data. In this example of classifying videos, we train the RNN by passing it a sequence of frame descriptions, empty box, open box, closing box, and finally a label, packing. As the RNN processes each sequence, it uses a loss or error function to compare its predicted output with the correct label. Then it adjusts the weights and processes the sequence again until it achieves a higher accuracy. The challenge with these approaches to image and video models, however, is that the amount of data we need to truly mimic human vision is incredibly large. If we train our model to recognize this picture of a duck, as long as we're given this one picture with this lighting, color, angle, and shape, we can see that it's a duck. But if you change any of that, or even just rotate the duck, the algorithm might not understand what it is anymore. Now, this is the big picture problem. To get an algorithm to truly understand and recognize image content the way the human brain does, we need to feed it incredibly large amounts of data of millions of objects across thousands of angles, all annotated and properly defined. The problem is so big that if you're a small startup or a company lean on funding, there's just no resources available for you to do that. This is why technologies like Google Cloud Vision and video can help. Google digests and filters millions of images and videos to train these APIs. We've trained a network to extract all kinds of data from images and video so that your application doesn't have to. With just one REST API request, we're able to access a powerful pre-trained model that gives us all sorts of metadata. Here's how easy it is to call the Cloud Vision API with curl. I'll send this image to the API, and here's the response we get back. Billions of years since the evolution of our sense of sight, we found that computers are on their way to matching human vision, and it's all available as an API. If you'd like to know more about the Cloud Vision and Video APIs, check out their product pages at the links here to see how you can easily add machine learning to your application. Thanks for watching.
Okay. Sorry. So that was a quick view of what exactly the overarching field of computer vision is all about. Right, obviously, some of the main algorithms we got to understand from there. But I mean, yeah, I mean, this is like just on a very, very like maybe 60,000 feet level, what exactly it is all about. But I'll probably give you some more crisp demo of some of the tools that we're going to talk about. But let me pause over here and see what exactly did you guys get out from the video. What were the highlights for you? Or if you guys have any questions, I'm going to open up your chat window for a minute. And so Sandeep says, what are the jobs that will no longer be available during different stages of development and after the development of AI and automation? That was Google Cloud Marketing. Not really, Amit. I mean, I think that was just a good video. But we don't have to necessarily use any particular tool. Like, I mean, it was a good synopsis. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of tools, including from the like all the tech companies, Google, you have Microsoft, you have IBM, you have Amazon, so on and so forth, where you can actually look into. No offense. I mean, so no offense taken on that. So, but that's the main idea behind that, right? I mean, and see, I mean, one of the things that you have to remember as a data scientist is, or AI application engineer, or the different areas which come in the overall field of AI or the computer vision, is that you don't have to necessarily do everything on your own. There are tools, there are APIs, there are things that you can plug and play, and you can actually benefit from it. We have a team which is working on doing. I mean, right now I'm mentoring the team, and I think some of the participants are there from that team as well, where they are trying to figure out how do we take the images which get uploaded on the e-commerce portal. So for example, let's say Amazon delivers you something or Flipkart delivers you something, right? There are a lot of fraudsters out there who will on purpose take an image of the product and deface the image of the product, right? And do something on Adobe Photoshop and all of that, upload it there and say, by the way, I got this product as defective, right? Now, if you are an e-commerce player, it's not practically possible for you to go and look into each one of those requests and detect which one is fraudulent and which one is not, right? So the team is really looking into some of these APIs to figure out whether those images existed anywhere on the web, and if that is the case, then obviously they are the fake images and fraud chances are very high. And then if they are not, then also they can go through and then see whether there has been some modification on the images, right? But a lot of these APIs come in handy from that point of view. Great. No, good comment, Amit. Anything else from anyone else that you took out? So let me ask you a quiz question. How many years of training your brain has gone through to identify whether this is a cat, this is a dog, that's flower, that's a plant, so on and so forth? Any idea how many years? nearly 4, almost 3 years. Okay, maybe the first 3 years. Okay, so that's where we actually started the video, if you remember, that our human brain has gone through at least couple of millions of years of training, right? So whatever our ancestors learned, it's all passed on in your recognition, right? So even though it's being reinforced in your childhood days, but your brain has been constantly under training in terms of doing those tasks, right? So that's why you can see sometimes, a 3-year-old may outperform a machine in terms of the object identification. So immediately they'll know, okay, this is a pillow, this is a bed, this is TV, this is so on and so forth, right? Because they can identify. So a pillow in any shape and form, they will still be able to make out. They will not confuse that with a TV. However, if I put a rectangular pillow right next to a TV, a computer may struggle because they haven't gone through these many years of data, right? So that's where the entire field of computer vision really hinges on, which is sort of leveraging the existing data, right? And you have to train the model with millions of images, right? If not more, if you want to really build an scalable solution and robust solution, you have to have those many images and videos to train on. So, and not just the videos, but the bigger problem is, so for example, if I'm trying to build a computer vision model, so if I upload, if I upload images of good cells and bad cells, right? And I have 1 million of these images and 1 million of these images. If I don't tell the computer that these are the good cells, these are the bad cells or malignant cells, how would the computer recognize, right? So that's where basically what you have to have is what we call as an annotation. A human has to go and annotate the images that when you see something like this, it's good. When you see something like this, it's bad. I'm just obviously making up something at random, but that's the main idea. And that's where the challenge lies. So when you are trying to build, let's say, a computer vision model to detect the damage in a car, right? You must have millions of images of the cars with damage to assess how big is the damage, right? And then based on that, then you can think about a business application, which could be that, customer just needs to upload an image of a car with a damage, and actually I can figure out what exactly is the cost of repair, and then I can have lot of mechanics and the auto shops, body shops bid on it, and then actually let the best person win that, right? So there are a lot of applications, but obviously the challenge remains in that, right? There are many free tools, as you can see on my screen right now, which are freely available for anyone who wants to do. So this is the beautiful thing about the data science. You don't have to pay unless you want to pay, right? So there are many different tools which can do the task for you. We just did a demo of the Google Vision. Similar thing is available from Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and so on and so forth, right? And I think we're almost running out of the time, so I will not do the demo of the Google Vision API, but you can try it out later. It's there in the deck, and you will have an access to this deck as well, where you upload any image. So for example, I uploaded this image. It will tell that this is a picture of a person, right? And then what are the sentiments on the face. It will also go into like what are the different areas that it can identify, whether there's a smile or not, whether there's a sadness on the face, and then it will crawl the web in terms of where exactly this image may have appeared. And this goes back to the point I was raising about the fraudulent images and all of that. And then it will have, where exactly this particular image has been associated with. What are the keywords where this person's image has been there. So data science, analytics, and so on and so forth. Obviously, that's me. Similarly, I uploaded another image, and you can see again it's coming out with a lot of different things. It will recognize there are facial hairs. There is, stuff like the OCR and all of that. So what I'm going to do now is shift gears and give a quick demo with completely free tools. Nobody has to pay anything for this. And we will not do obviously a very sophisticated computer vision sort of thing. But what I'm going to do now is just to recognize if I pass on any object like this, can you identify where are the human faces, right? And you can see how simple is the code in terms of doing that. And then I will pause and open up for Q&A, and then I will pass it on to Shinu for taking you forward in the journey, right? So this is, for those who don't know, again, I mean, this is all mentioned there in my deck over here. So this is a free tool from Google Collaboratory, which will give you access to the GPUs and the TPUs so that you can do the image processing. And I'm leveraging that. So I'm already connected with my Gmail account. So the first thing that we're going to do is basically install this package called the face recognition. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, we just go along with this. I just want to show you how simple things are, right? So package is nothing but a predefined routines which will do certain tasks for you. And the people like you and me, we can create a package in Python and we can upload, and rest of the Python community can leverage that. So one of the package is face recognition. What it does is you pass on any image, whether it's an image of a car, truck, cat, dog, all of that. And if there is a human face anywhere in that image, it will recognize that, right? Because it has been trained to do that. So I just installed that package. Then I'm installing another package, which is a great package within Python, which is the OpenCV, Open Computer Vision. That is required. I'm doing certain other packages, which are for mostly the plotting and stuff like that, right? And the idea is not to show you, like, I mean, how exactly these packages work, but the idea is to show you, okay, so fine. So I need to upload this image. I need to find where that image is. Just a second. Okay, there is that image. Let me see. All right, one more time. So what I have done is I have uploaded this image, and we can make out. So if I zoom in a little bit, so we can clearly see if I don't deploy a computer vision, and let's say I had a task for whatever reasons, I had a task where I am asking my analyst to go and look into a particular image and see how many people are there. So in this picture, for example, you and I, we don't need any training, right? I mean, because we've gone through millions of years of training and all the mathematics that we've gone through, we can identify 4 faces are here, right? But it's not that simple for a computer to really identify. So what we do now is run this package, and within this package, what we're also doing, we are deploying this model CNN, right? CNN is basically the convolutional neural network, which is trained for identifying facial features like the eyebrows, the nose, the lips, the mouth, the chins, and all of that. And what it does is basically it says, okay, I have 4 of those faces, and it gives you the location. And this is location in terms of the pixel. A face starts here, ends here, and so on and so forth. I say, fine, but can you give me in a pictorial format? And then I run another code, which is basically nothing, but I'm going to draw the blue rectangles around those facial features, right? So you can see some of these applications even in your phones, for example. When you're focusing on a person, it will focus on the face, right? Because all of those are being driven by inherent engine, which is trained to recognize the human face. So in this, you can see how easy it is for me to build a computer vision mini application of facial recognition to identify human faces in certain objects, right? So I will pause over here. This is already 45 minutes in the session. Let's make it now more Q&A oriented. Anything that came to your mind I haven't touched upon, any areas that you would like for me to talk about a bit more, any general Q&A and so on and so forth. But before I go and do that, I would like to quickly, yeah, they are, Amit. I mean, they're a little bit resource intensive. So before I go and talk about that, I mean, why are we here, right? I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of buzz, right? And I would say all of that is true. And somebody had a question, what can be automated? Which jobs are at risk, right? The short answer is pretty much everything is at risk, right? So I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you and say, no, you're safe, or that person is not safe, nothing is going to happen to you. It's not like that. Your job is never safe, right? The technology that exists right now is going to be obsolete before you know it, right? Even within the data science, the tools and technologies that you're using, that evolves over a period of time, right? So you have to constantly upgrade your skills, look at what is the latest in the industry. and get onboarded ASAP on those things, right? So just to really ensure that you have a long, successful corporate career. I mean, you don't have to be in the field of this. I mean, there are many other fields, but if you decide to be in anything related to this, AI is a definite must, right? Or data science awareness is sort of like, mandatory requirement, right? Here are some of the numbers from one of the report that Gartner published, and I have a link there. Everywhere you see, they will talk about, how AI is going to change that. AI along with the blockchain and some of the other things. And automation is one of the main themes for the next decade, right? So they have a hype curve. Basically, any technology which becomes sort of like, regular thing for us, it goes through a cycle. They call that cycle as a hype cycle. So something it initially comes in, there will be a lot of, people will think that it's going to solve the world poverty, right? Everything that you need will be solved from that technology. Obviously, it's a hype, right? Then comes a phase where you have the real utility of the technology coming in. So the blockchain has already passed that, for example, hype cycle. So you can see these are some of the trends that they are betting on, which is hyper automation, multi-experience, democratization of all the things, human augmentation, so man and machine combination, which is artificial intelligence, and yeah, right? So machines will be making a decision in place of human, right? How scary is that? If you're already not scared. Transparency and traceability. Shinu mentioned about that, so I was working for a company called Cabbage, and all the loans that we issue to the people are mostly done by the machines. There is zero human involvement, and when you have zero human involvement, all the biases that you have, so for example, if you say African American, gender, ethnicity, immigrant, non-immigrant, all of that goes out of the window, right? So it's going to look into the factual data and all of that. So you have machines which are much more unbiased than a human. And there are many, many other things like, autonomous blockchains and all of that. All of that is going to be fed in by AI in some shape and form. And I generally sort of like, use this and I think that catches the attention, and I really truly believe in this. So if I go back to like early 2000 or late 90s, right? And when you had a lot of people working in the corporate who had very little awareness about the Microsoft Office suite, right? They were still very productive. They were still having very successful career. They were still going places. They had a long runway in front of them. Fast forward to where we are right now, and if you say, I don't know PowerPoint, I don't know Excel, I don't know Word, then God only help you, right? The same thing is going to happen along the same path, probably in a longer tenure or shorter tenure. I don't know. I'm not a predictor of the future. But if you say that I have zero awareness of the data science, I don't know what is ML, I don't know what is deep learning, I have no idea about what you're talking about, then sooner or later, you will be in a tough crowd where people sitting on the table will know all the things and you have very little awareness of that. That will definitely become a handicap, in my opinion. So I will rest with that comment and open up for Q&A, and then have Shinu also jump in for some of those aspects, right? I hope it gives you some information at least in terms of what is the computer vision and what are the possibilities that you're looking at. And also made you think about the real possibilities in the world, as we know is changing very, very quickly. Okay, cool. So let's see the comments coming in. So Sushmita, great, thank you. Hope you got something away from that. Okay, so Dilesh, clarify if AI is available as a service now, then what kind of skill is required for those who seek job in this domain? Okay, I will answer that in a minute. Ramachandra says, do not have any programming knowledge. Can I learn AI with zero programming knowledge? Okay, so yeah, nobody is born with a programming knowledge, first of all. Right? Everybody has to learn it, right? And there's no good or bad time to learn it, right? And I think you're right with the democratization of the data, of the tools and techniques, the role of actual hard coding will diminish. But I think if you want to be really productive, you should be coding comfortable, if not an expert, at least comfortable. But if you ask me, for example, if I am leading a team or how many days I do the coding in my office day-to-day basis, probably not that many days. But do I understand what my team is working on? You must understand, right? So can I give them the feedback? Absolutely, you must, right? So you need to have that much knowledge to sort of like, what is happening. But it's not like you have to get your hands dirty every day and do that things on your own, right? So the short answer is you may or may not know the coding, but you must be ready to learn it. And it's not really rocket science. I mean, you saw how long is this code, and this is like as good as English. I mean, there is no like, alpha, beta, gamma, theta, and all the funny stuff. It's pure English, right? So that's super helpful. Okay. Amit says, and when you're typing something, guys, reply to everyone so that people can see the comment, right? Amit says, will the course be taught from the scratch, or you guys are expecting? So I will have Shinu talk about that. Shinu, would you like to answer that question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So our program is sequentially built with a modular approach. We actually start, especially though we have some prerequisites of taking admissions for this MTech program. Still, we would accept people with maybe no background, but then there would be modules on programming, some of the basic mathematical concepts that which you have studied in your school days, like say algebra, and then moving on to more of data understanding and machine learning, statistical modeling, and all that. So we will not start initially with the building RNN or CNN, what RP just showed. Definitely no. There will be a progressive path that we have designed.
Yep. Elroy has a question. Some technologies like blockchain did not pick up as, say, big data. So how to identify what mix of skills and in which aspect of AI to target so we are in the right place? So great question, Elroy. I mean, and nobody has this crystal ball to say you should go and pick up only these things. But if you look at some of the anecdotal evidences or empirical evidences in terms of what exactly has taken off, even if you look into those technologies, these technologies will be there for a long time, right? So let's list out a couple of them, right? So the one thing that you can definitely bet on within the AI broader, just a second, I'll just pull up my, and I can keep talking, you don't have to wait for me to sort of pull up this document. So one of the things that will definitely pick up or has already picked up and will gain more momentum as we talk about that is definitely the field of computer vision, and there are tons of applications all around us, right? I'm just talking about the broad umbrella AI. I mean, there are obviously a lot of different things which is happening in NLP, right? Natural language processing. So what we are talking about right now, how can I decipher that? How do I understand the sentiment? How do I know the tone, whether the customer is happy or unhappy, and so on and so forth? How many people are talking, right? And can I do a transcription on a real-time basis? Can I do a closed captioning on a real-time basis? And even if you assume that they have already picked up, believe it or not, we are only doing 0.5% of what is possible, right? Even if you think about the internet and e-commerce also has a very, very long distance to go, believe it or not, right? So, I mean, if you think the market is already saturated, there's room for 10 more players, right? Obviously, you need to have a competitive strategy and the entire game plan and the analytics around it, right? But even if you think about some of the things which have already gone places, like blockchain has gained traction and is gaining traction at least in the legal and some of those other contract related areas. Same thing is happening with the computer vision and the NLP. And then, I mean, you have a whole host of more benign tools like, your good old decision tree, logistic regression, clustering, segmentation approaches, which you will learn, in this program as you go through, which are like, I mean, finding applications wherever you can think about, right? And ultimately, let's not forget that most of the things in life follow the 80-20 rule, right? So basically, your 20% of the tools and technologies will do 80% of the tasks. And this 20% is not really very difficult. This is very simple to learn and understand for a large majority of us. Cool. During the program, will there be coverage of programming and coding? Shinu?
Yes. If you can just put those the slides back, Karpi, that would be great.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Karthik, can you stop sharing? I will share the screen.
Yeah, I think that will be better. Yeah, so let me do that.
Okay, so coming back again to the question which we just answered that, yeah.
Karthik, I want you to stop sharing your screen.
I stopped.
Okay.
Shall I now?
1 minute. Let me.
Yeah, Shri can continue, I think, while
Yeah.
we're trying to.
So as we just mentioned, this program is definitely built on a sequential model. It is not built initially itself to build, say, facial recognition, though we actually put a lot of projects here. The idea is to quickly learn programming. It is not that you have to go through years of learning to do this programming. As RP told, right, if you have the right understanding of the right tools and a lot of inbuilt packages and libraries, it is quite easy to pick up. But then we also would like to know, especially since you are an MTech student, compared to the degree itself requires you to be little more technically aware about how these packages are built or how these libraries are built. So there is a little bit of programming that we will definitely teach, but then it is definitely not difficult. We have seen people with some logical understanding and a lot of practice. Definitely practice helps, that they have picked up programming from a non-programming background. Okay, so just to give you, I know we have crossed the time, but if you look at the program structure itself, we have actually, there are 4 broad concepts in which these trimesters have been designed. So the first trimester is how would you handle data? So to handle the data, you need the right programming understanding. You need a topic which you would have long forgotten, linear algebra, because that's the core of most of these machine learning models that you built. So we will get some good understanding. You can appreciate later that how these models are getting built. And then how would you manage your data, both structured and unstructured? So unstructured data like images or your voice or all that, whereas a lot of CSV or structured data which comes in. So there is definitely this trimester 1, which all the subjects are very fundamental in nature, which will take you to prepare to the next level. Next level, trimester 2 is mainly to build models, both statistical, machine learning, and advanced machine learning, okay, deep learning and your reinforcement learning, all that comes in the second trimester. It's quite fast-paced. And then once you have the understanding, then how would you go and apply? So trimester 3 is majorly to apply these learnings using, definitely in the trimester 2 also there will be a lot of application use cases, but then in trimester 3 you will get on to more of using NLP or your conversational AI, fuzzy systems and all that to build industry grade or solve some of these problems. In trimester 4, we will concentrate more on little more advanced, like say your image and vision and all that comes. So trimester 3 is mainly for text analytics based, but in trimester 4 is more of little more complicated models, which is what just RP showed, computer vision, speech analytics. We also have a humanoid simulator which we are getting built. So we would use those, and also the production, the final deployment of your models in the real-time scenarios. So this is the structure. So you can see a lot of basics have been covered, but it's a quick progression to advanced applications of AI. And we also have a set of state-of-the-art labs because of COVID. You know that we are all shut down, but otherwise we have a very thriving research culture here, and a set of industry mentors are driving these research projects. And we also have a set of ecosystem. It's not just the mentors, the labs, but industry problems, set of peers, participants working collaboratively in solving various things. Like say RP just mentioned, a fake image detection could be a great project for you to showcase, and which will help you in your placements and others. So this is how we have put up the program. The previous slide, Pawan, just yeah. So we have multiple projects going on, and then these programs are going to be very project driven. So it's not like a lot of theory. It is all the classes are labs, with data coming in from, some of them are coming from maybe some of the academic sites like Kaggle or UCLA and all that, but we also have a set of live industry projects working. Okay, do we have more questions, RP?
There are two more questions here.
Okay.
One is, I am 14 years of experience in IT. How recruiter view our profile as AI/ML fresher on the roadmap?
Okay. So I would ask RP also to take this question. From our point of view, your past experience matters to us. Don't negate whatever career you have already built so far. You are now the situation, or what we would want you to project is how would you strengthen your profile with this AI knowledge. So can you go back into your own job profile and then look at opportunities to apply this knowledge and do your 1 year program or year program with us. While you are doing the program, do also try to apply some of these and solve some of these problems. Maybe you should try working with data science groups in your company, and then these 2 years you build your resume with some good solid projects. With that, a very different profile is what you're going to project in the interview. That's what we would suggest. RP, if you have anything. Hello?
There is one more question.
Okay, sorry, I was talking on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. No,
The question is, yeah, you heard the question, no?
Definitely agree, Shinu. So I think your existing experience, guys, whether you have 5, 10, 12 years of experience, is something definitely that you will leverage, right? But these other skill sets will probably build on top of your existing experience to create a more aligned profile for the AI and data science team that you're looking at, right? And frankly speaking, I think, when you're coming in for any of these programs, you should not think about like this is a departure from what you're doing. It's more like an augmentation and making it much more sharper and better.
One more question. What will be the duration of the MTech course and what will be the duration of the per trimester?
Yeah, so this is an executive program approved by all the regulatory authorities. Reva University is a UGC program, UGC approved university, and each program specifically has been approved by ACT, and MTech is one. So this program, unlike other regular conventional the university programs, these are much more fast-tracked. That's why we would suggest a trimester, or we have different trimester set of structure. So each trimester is about 4 months. In a year, you will have 3 trimesters with about 4 to 5 subtopics, modules. We call it as modules. So you will end up having about 13 to 14 modules in a year. So it shows, and it's weekend program. Saturdays is what we typically have all the live classes, but 24/7 available LMS and other support, and a lot of communication happens. We collaborate, like say about RP just told that the whole MS suite we use to collaborate multiple levels, project collaboration. So this is all happening during the weekdays, but during the Saturdays is what we will run the class. The duration for an MTech program, as per the ACT regulations and our Board of Studies and all that, it is 2 years. 2 years as a weekend program, but then you also have to do certain projects as part of it, which has also been part of the credit. So it's about 104 credits that we call. Each module has certain credits, and it gets accumulated over these trimesters, and then you get your credits and your final master's degree. So these are some of the other programs from our executive program tech. So please connect with any of us, and I'm sure some of you have already been connected to some of our team, Abhijit, John, or Ravi, or Basavaraj, and me, or anyone from our team. We would be glad to help individually on your personal queries. This MTech in AI is starting. The new batch is going to start from August. So we would love to hear from you. We also want to wish you to welcome to our campus, but because of the lockdown, we have strict policies to come in. But otherwise, we can have a virtual tour of our labs and facilities and ensure that you are in safe hands in terms of learning AI. Yeah. Pavel, if questions are not there, we have crossed 9 o'clock. I know we have to profusely thank all of you, including RP, for sparing a good weekday, almost an hour or so with us. We are really, really grateful, and we do hope that you got some value out of this 1 hour of your time. And if at all you have any specific queries, RP is available on LinkedIn. His Data FAI is an excellent blog site. He's available. He's quite open. I think he has put up, including his numbers, all that is there. Please connect. And connect with us also if you are looking for joining any of our programs, and especially in AI. Yeah. So we would wish all of you a safe night, and stay connected and stay learning. RP, thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Shinu.